an active volcano that holds more than just the danger of its eruptions. Behind the roar of lava and the sea of ash, there are stories that not everyone dares to reveal. It is said that there are certain areas that are considered sacred, areas that can only be entered with permission, areas that if violated can bring disaster. However, not everyone believes in such stories. Three friends, August, Friedi, and Chrisia, are the type of people who believe in science rather than myths. They are experienced climbers who have explored various mountains in Indonesia. However, this time, their journey will be different. They will face something that cannot be explained by logic, something that would change their lives forever. This journey started with excitement and curiosity. However, they had no idea that they had stepped into territory that no mere mortal should tread. They had no idea that they were breaking taboos that had been maintained for hundreds of years. This is their story, the story of a hike that turned into terror. A story of mistakes that cannot be righted. A story of the price paid for human pride. The night wind was blowing cold when August, Friedi, and Chrisia arrived at the base camp. Some of the other hikers have already started resting in their tents. The campfire burned dimly, providing some warmth amongst the cold mountain air. "We've finally arrived," said August as he stretched his body. "Ready for tomorrow's trip?" "Of course," Friedi replied, smiling broadly. "But before that, let's eat first. I'm starving." The three of them sat down by the campfire and started eating the food they had brought. Meanwhile, an old man guarding the base camp walked up to them. His face was serious, his eyes sharp. "Are you three climbing Merapi for the first time?" he asked. August nodded. "Yes, sir, but we've climbed many mountains before." The old man sighed softly. "Merapi is different. There are rules you must obey. Do not speak carelessly. Don't take anything from this mountain. And most importantly, never cross the boundaries of the official trails." Chrissy frowned. "Why, sir? What's going on up there?" The old man stared at them with an inexplicable look in his eyes. "Beyond the official path, there are places that no mortal should tread, places inhabited by those who are unseen. If you trespass, then you alone will suffer the consequences." There was an instant silence. The wind blew stronger, as if to warn them. However, August only chuckled. "Thank you for the warning, sir, but we're used to this kind of myth." The old man shook his head as if he wanted to say something, but eventually he just turned and left. That night, the three of them slept peacefully, unaware that something was waiting for them up there, something that would turn their journey into a nightmare. The sky was clear as they began their hike. The air was cool and the hiking trail seemed friendly. They enjoyed the journey, joking and taking photos along the trail. However, when they reached the third post, Chrissy noticed something strange. "Hey, look at that," she said, pointing to a small path that deviated from the official trail. The path was covered in a light mist and looked very quiet. August approached and saw a faded warning sign. "No entry," Friedi chuckled. "Looks like an old trail. Maybe it was used by hikers in the past." Chrissy bit her lip. "Should we try it?" August smiled a challenging smile. "Why not? It's a rare opportunity. Who knows, we might find something interesting." Friedi looked hesitant, but eventually followed August's lead into the forbidden path. As their feet stepped onto the path, the wind suddenly stopped. The forest felt quieter. There was no sound of birds, no sound of insects. It was as if the whole of nature was holding its breath. However, they didn't realize it. They were too busy enjoying this new path, too busy ignoring the warnings that had been given. After a few hours of walking, they came across something that made their hair stand on end. In the middle of the forest, there was a large stone shaped like a gate. The stone was filled with strange carvings that looked like ancient script. "What is this?" whispered Chrissy, feeling that something was wrong. August approached the stone and placed his hand on it. Instantly, a rumbling sound was heard. The wind that had been calm now swirled violently. The temperature dropped drastically. Friedi backed away with a scared face. "August, we have to get out of here." However, before they could move, there was a sound from the forest. The sound of footsteps, but not human footsteps. They were heavy, dragging, and came from every direction. They looked at each other. Chrissy swallowed. "What is it?" The footsteps were getting closer. Black shadows began to emerge from behind the trees. Red eyes glowed in the darkness. August gasped. We have to run. They turned around and ran as fast as they could. But the more they ran, the more the forest felt like a maze. They couldn't find their way out, and behind them, the sound of footsteps was getting faster. Chrissy looked back and stifled her scream. The supernatural figures were now very close. Their forms were large, wearing armor, with faces that were no longer human. A supernatural army. They had awakened something that should have remained asleep. What happens when someone breaks the rules that have been guarded for hundreds of years? What happens when people arrogantly reject the warnings that have been given? Agus, Freddy, and Chrissy must now face the consequences of their decision. They have crossed the line. They have entered a territory that they should not have stepped on. And now they are no longer ordinary hikers who just got lost on the mountain. They are the hunted. The supernatural forces had awakened. The figures that should have remained asleep were now on the move, targeting them mercilessly. There was no way out, no place to hide. They can only run. But until when? Their breathing was labored. Their legs began to feel tired, but the sound of heavy steps behind them did not stop. "I don't know where we are," Freddy shouted frantically. "This path isn't on the map." Chrissy looked back and her eyes widened. "They're getting closer. Run faster." Agus gritted his teeth. "There must be a way out. Keep running." They ran without direction. The forest they once knew now felt unfamiliar. The trees grew taller and thicker. The air grew colder. Strange noises began to be heard among the trees. Suddenly, Chrissy tripped and fell to the ground. Agus immediately stopped and pulled her hand. "Get up, Chrissy. We can't stop here." But before Chrissy could stand up, the sound of footsteps stopped. Silence. It felt like the whole world froze. Freddy swallowed. "Did they leave already?" Chrissy took a deep breath, her eyes glazed over. "I don't know." The three of them looked at each other. Then from the darkness came a sound that made their blood run cold. The sound of laughter. It sounded low, trembled, and came from various directions. They couldn't see who was laughing, but they knew. Something was watching them. The scene switches to them walking slowly, looking for a way out. "I feel like there's something wrong with this place," whispered Chrissy, gripping Agus's arm tightly. "There's definitely something wrong," Freddy muttered. "I can't pick up a signal on the GPS. This path isn't on the map, and we should be back on the main path." Argus tried to remain calm. "Okay, we shouldn't panic. We'll keep walking until we find a way out." They kept walking, but the forest was getting stranger and stranger. There were no animal sounds. There was no wind. And to make matters worse, the trees around them seemed to have changed shape. The branches were now curved like hands that wanted to grab them. The roots in the ground moved slowly as if alive. Chrissy held back tears. "Agus, I'm scared." Suddenly there were footsteps in front of them. They froze. From behind the trees, an old man in shabby clothes emerged. His face was pale, his eyes sunken, and his gaze blank. Freddy immediately greeted him. "Sir, help us. We're lost." The old man looked at them for a long time, then shook his head slowly. "You're not lost. You've entered their world." Agus frowned. "What do you mean?" The old man looked down. "I've been here too long. I've made the same mistakes, and I can never get out." Chrissy started to cry. No way. We just got lost. We'll get out." The old man approached and spoke in a soft voice. "They won't just let you go. You woke them up." Freddy began to tremble. "What should we do?" The old man let out a long breath. "There's only one way." The three of them looked at the man with hope. "Submit a sacrifice." The scene continues with them arguing about their choices. "What does it mean to hand over a sacrifice?" asked Agus with a tense face. The old man looked at them with sad eyes. "In order to return, someone must stay here. Someone has to take your place." Chrissy took a step back. No way." Freddy shook his head hard. "No, the three of us have to go out together." The old man looked down. "They won't let you three go. Someone has to take your place." The atmosphere became tense. The three friends looked at each other. Would they have to sacrifice one of them to survive? Agus clenched his fists. "No one will stay. The three of us will find another way." The old man looked at them with pity. "Then, get ready." Before they could ask what he meant, the wind suddenly picked up. The sound of laughter could be heard again, but this time, it was closer. Black shadows began to appear among the trees. The magical army had now surrounded them, and this time, they wouldn't let them escape. Every mistake has consequences. However, there are some mistakes that cannot be fixed, no matter how hard one tries. Agus, Freddy, and Chrisia are now at the point of no return. They have entered forbidden territory, awakened something that should have remained asleep, and now they must pay the price for their actions. The supernatural forces had surrounded them. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The only way out left was an impossible choice. Someone must stay. The question is, who will be the victim? The huge shadows stand tall, their eyes glowing red in the darkness. Their faces are covered in golden masks that resemble human faces. But there is something very wrong with their shape. Their hands held black, pointy spears, and their bodies were covered in shimmering armor. They were not human. They were not creatures of this world. They were guardians of the unseen world. Freddy recoiled in fear. What should we do? The old man they met earlier stood behind them, staring with a flat expression. You must choose now, Chrissy began to cry. No, no way. We can't. Agus growled angrily. We won't sacrifice anyone. One of the supernatural troops stepped forward, his voice echoing like an echo from the bottom of the earth. Choose, or we'll choose for you. Chrissy panicked. Agus, we have to do something. Agus gritted his teeth. His brain was spinning to find a solution, but there was no way out. There was no other option. And then something surprising happened. The old man stepped forward. I will be your sacrifice, he said softly. Chrissy was shocked. What? No. Why you? The old man smiled sadly. I've been here too long. I should go. If I can make amends by saving you guys, then let me do it. Agus looked at the man. His eyes glazed over. Are you sure? The man nodded. Go on, before they change their minds. Freddy pulled Agus and Chrissy's hands. Let's go. But before they could move, one of the supernatural troops spoke again. Not enough. Their hearts sank. They didn't just want one sacrifice. They wanted more. The scene continues with them trying to escape. Without thinking, Agus, Freddy, and Chrissy turned around and ran as hard as they could. The supernatural forces moved immediately. Their steps were heavy, but they were faster than humans. Freddy looked back and screamed. They're getting closer! Agus saw a gap between the trees. Go there! They ran towards the gap, hoping it was a way out. But the more they ran, the more the forest seemed to move on its own. The trees changed places. The path that had been there now disappeared. The forest didn't want them to leave. Chrissy started crying again. We can't get out. We're trapped. Freddy almost gave up. I don't want to die here. Agus paused, took a breath, then grasped both of their hands. Listen to me. We have to stay together. We'll get out of here. They kept running until finally, they saw something in front of them. Light. The stone gate where they first entered now stood in front of them. That's the way out, shouted Agus. But just before they could pass through the gate, something caught Chrissy's leg. A black hand grabbed her ankle and pulled her back. Chrissy screamed, Help! Freddy and Agus turned around trying to pull her up, but the grip was too strong. The supernatural forces had gotten their prey. Agus looked at Chrissy in panic. Chrissy, don't let go, Chrissy cried, looking at them with fear. Go away, otherwise we'll all die. Chrissy shook his head hard. No, we won't leave you. But before they could pull Sari out, the supernatural army made a thunderous sound. In an instant, Chrissy's body was dragged into the darkness. And then, she disappeared. Once they passed through the stone gate, everything changed. The forest that had been dark was now bright again. The wind blew gently. The birds were chirping again. They had returned to the human world. But Chrissy was not with them. Agus fell to his knees. No, this can't be. Freddy stared at the stone gate, hoping Sari would reappear. But the gate slowly began to close. Chrissy was gone, and they couldn't do anything about it. Agus and Freddy returned to the city, but they could never forget what happened. They tried to tell others, but no one believed them. And to make matters worse, every night, August heard someone's voice calling his name in his dreams. A familiar voice, Krishy's voice. And one night when he woke up, he saw something that made his blood run cold. On the mirror in his room, there was a faint writing that appeared from the dew. "You should come with me.